Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings, the final major of the year, the 150th Open Championship. DraftKings Millionaire Maker picks and preview. This is the first look show. The final DraftKings pick show is going to be live 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time on Mayo Media Network on Wednesday with myself and Toe Tag and Tambo, taking your questions, updating the ownership, updating the weather, because we're doing this early. We don't know what the weather is right now. We don't know what the ownership is going to lead us to and the conclusions that people are going to draw during the week. So please sub to Mayo Media Network to make sure that you don't miss out on that. And if you sub to Mayo Media Network, you're in a draw to win a top prize of $500 cash. You could get a year membership to fantasynational.com. You could get a nice black Augusta National polo straight from the Augusta National official Pro Shop. All you need to do is sub to the channel, leave a rating and review on the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, 5 stars, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or both. Hell, might as well do both. If you have both, go do both. Get yourself more ballots into the draw. There is one way to get a lot of ballots into the draw. Subscribe to the newsletter or just check it out. Down in the description, you will find all of the ways to enter this draw, and the one that gets you 100 ballots into it, all within the newsletter. We'll have newsletters coming out Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evening to update you on everything that's going on. And remember to play in the DraftKings Listeners League. 6,000 spots this week, $90,000 of rake-free guaranteed money. Let's fill this up. It's the last big one we're going to have until football season, so let's make the most of that rake-free money. Tyler Tamboline in the studio with me. Ben Rasa on the line. We're back to do it once again, guys.
Yeah, excited. It's like I said, it's sad but true, but it is the last one of the season. It's been a great time doing it with you guys. I love doing this show personally, and always nice to get a good first look, kind of especially for this week. We like this primetime golf, and we like coming from the Scottish Open leading into it, where we're basically bringing the exact same golf right across.
Exact same golf is going to be a little bit different. Ben, I talked about this with Steve Bamford on the research show. Everyone can go check that out right now. It's already posted. We dig into the trends, we dig into the analysis, and Steve has some good info on coastal players as well. The Scottish Open is like a hybrid links course at the Renaissance Club this week. I wouldn't say just because you did well at the Scottish Open means you're going to do well at the Open. We know that never really happens that way. But I think that there's a reason like Rory and Lowry and Tiger all skipped this event. Even HV3 pulled out last minute of the Scottish Open so they could stick in Ireland and play like true links courses, which they think will set themselves up better.
Certainly, we know next week's going to be the truest of the truest links course, and there is a lot to that. It's also, when you're over here, if you play a string of courses, you're probably going to get the wrong end of the weather at some point. So it's hard to just string together true good recent form, and there's a lot of noise in it. But I love this stretch of golf. My favorite time of the golfing year, and obviously it doesn't get better than St. Andrews.
My favorite, the old course, 30th time St. Andrews has hosted the Open Championship. I think the first one was like 1873 or something crazy like that. I'll have my article on DraftKings Nation. I'll have all that info in it, along with trends to go with it. But it's completely exposed. There's no trees here. It's like 200 meters from the Bay of St. Andrews, which is like an inlet of the North Sea. Like, you might get absolutely pummeled. But the difficult part is, when we talk about weather draws, and I know you had something to say about the weather draws, is you might even want to look at like micro weather draws this week, like guys teeing off within 90 minutes of one another both days, just to kind of pound down, and not even just do AM PM, do the micro AM PM, but stack both sides, because we don't know where the wind's going to come from this week. I refreshed it Friday morning and it was one thing, no wind. Refresh it on Saturday morning, it's the gustiest thing ever. I assume when I check back later tonight, it's going to be completely different again. It's hard enough to predict weather week after week after week, even just up until tee time. When you're in Scotland and you're this close to the ocean, there's going to be no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, the Wednesday show is going to be important for that aspect. If there's something crazy like we saw back in the day with Stenson Phil or whatever, you get that type of wave. But just what I was going to say about it, yeah, you mentioned it, but like the situation with weather all the time is like it's always about a victory lap or something. Like this week, for example, there absolutely was a weather advantage, a 2-stroke advantage at that at the Scottish Open. But if you use people, what'd you play? You played Scheffler, missed the cut. You played Mito, missed the cut.
Lucas
Herbert missed the cut. Like, it didn't make it work in that sense. So my point was more that if you're stacking both sides, and we've learned learned that from the players that you should in situational stuff like this where you can stack both sides. It's not just because you're going to hit the right side of it. Unless it blows that one away, you can still get a natural edge just by having some players. And we're on with Ben, the king of like the stat stacks. He'll do like 6 bombers or 6 guys that are on approach or 6 recent form guys. That's kind of the only way in PGA DFS to get some sense of correlation. Well, stacking tee times still can get you off some of the natural chalk on the other side, and you could end up with a good lineup that way just because of that sense. So I'm never against it, especially at these tournaments.
Ben, do you have any specific strategy when it comes to stacking the weather times? Obviously not knowing exactly what they're going to be at the moment, but it's really hard to go, especially at the Open Championship, beyond what is going to happen on the Thursday right when you lock. Because Friday completely changed, and that's something that we saw at the Scottish this week too, where we saw what happened on Thursday. That was when we looked at Wind Finder, it was like, oh yeah, the morning's going to be a whole lot easier than the afternoon. And just take that and go with it from there.
So that's one of the things that I always think is funny about the weather. Everybody studies it diligently, then it locks and you can't do anything. And people kind of just like, I feel like they assume that the weather doesn't change, whatever it is. But to me, I weight it a little more. Like the Thursday morning forecast is going to be a lot more accurate because we're almost there. Friday afternoon wind, that's pretty long way away. So I try to weigh what I see right in front of me. The other thing, and this is more of a question to you guys, does everyone still tee off on 1 at the Open?
Yes. I mean, I don't have that confirmed. That is something that Tim Andercust reminded me when I was golfing with him the other day.
Because that is a factor as well. There's like no AM. It's just people will be teeing off every 15 minutes forever. So I think what Tambo was alluding to as well is like you're going to have to hone in on even some, like, I will probably look to pair up some tee times, even a couple guys in a pair of groups and hope they drift off each other, just because you're going to have guys teeing off 8-9 hours apart. In some instances, it's going to be a very long day without split tees.
I totally forgot I totally forgot about the no split tees because he was like, well, it's the only true test of golf. Like even at Augusta, guys go off on the back. I was like, these are going to be long days at the Open Championship.
Long days.
Yeah.
Especially if that wind starts picking up. Like you start getting like you throw a 30 mile per hour like wrench, and it's not even like it's 30 mile per hours, but there's trees to shade you on some holes. You got none of that this week.
That's right. Yeah, so when I said earlier, exactly like you said, exactly, it's not the exact same at all. And that openness you just talked about is key as well, with some of those stacks tying into DFS. But you talked about those micro stacks. Ben alluded to it there with even the tee time stacks. Everyone said, oh, you just did it to get the screenshot. Not necessarily. Like, again, be smart about how you're doing it. Maybe find the setup where you go extend it a little bit. And if one is off in the distance, to fill out your lineup with someone you just truly like that you think can battle their way through. We even saw guys like JT at the Players. He battled through the wave and
even
got
this
there.
week at the Scottish Open.
Yeah.
You had both Xander and Matthew Fitzpatrick just prevail from the worst side of the wave.
Yeah, I will say, to tie it out, is just like, if you are doing that, I prefer to do it with what we would consider an elite
guy,
so that we can actually have them, be able to battle through anything versus, I'll take my shot on this guy even though he's in what's the perceived bad, if we even get there. I'm just saying in general, I don't hate that either way because they should get a lot of the same setup when they're playing it.
What skills do you think, just before trying to get into stacking the wind and looking at it, just objectively, let's throw that out the window and knowing that it might come at any point, so just apply it to everybody. What skills, Ben, do you think you're looking for this week? Because when I went back and looked at 2015, obviously there was weather, but Zach Johnson ends up winning in a 3-man playoff at minus 15. Tiger wins it at minus 19. Nick Faldo wins it at minus 18 back in 1990. John Daly wins it at minus 6 in a playoff the year that he ends up winning. So weather will greatly determine how difficult this course is going to play. But it was pretty revealing, although Zach Johnson and Spieth are sort of like, not necessarily outliers. They didn't take this way in order to win this event. But 5 of the guys who led in driving distance in 2015 all ended up inside the top 10 on the leaderboard.
And I think there is something to that. I don't want to say you can just bomb it and figure out the rest later, but there are elements of that. I do think wedges is one of the key links between all those guys. Obviously, ZJ isn't bombing it and then getting wedges in his hand, but regardless, he's a deadly wedge player in short irons. I think that no matter how you do it this week, you're going to need to take advantage of that. Obviously, with the wrong conditions in terms of calm weather, I think it's going to become a scoring fest like most. So to me, the common threads are you can be very aggressive off the tee if you want, and you have to take advantage of these short irons because you're going to have plenty of them.
Yeah, there's 14 par 4s at St. Andrews, 2 par 3s, 2 par 5s, and even looking back at it, of the top 10 guys that gained on par 4s in 2015, only Hideki, who was T7 and par 4s gained, was the only one to finish outside the top 10 on the leaderboard. He was T18. Yeah. Probably not a great putting week from old Hideki, and he was really young back in 2015. So I don't know if it's so much wedges. Like, yes, wedges, you're going to hit the ball to wherever, 110, 99, 130, because there's going to be significant rollout on a lot of these. Like, guys that normally hit the ball 285, well, they're going to be averaging like 213 or 313 this week, just because it looks like it's going to be relatively baked out. You might get wind behind you, and you're not having to hit it up a hill like you do at Augusta. It's going to be relatively flat. This is going to roll. So you need to be in proper position to where you want to get it to off the tee. It feels like this tournament is won, especially if the wind picks up from like 50 yards and in. Like, do you have enough magic beans to scramble here?
Yeah, I think tee to green is what I always focus on, especially at all these majors. But I'll tell you what, about the Open especially, it's a couple things. First off, you want these all-around players. You want the form that goes with it. But like, look for example, driving distance. Is it shelling out on paper? No different to me than putting does at tournaments. But it's not always who's the best putter or who's the longest off the tee. It happens to be that they were for that week. Now, driving distance is different, but the reason I'll rattle it back in is because the best players typically are long. And so what do you see on this leaderboard? You actually see the best players win this. If it's not major champions winning it, it's future major champions winning it. And I know you've looked at that stuff, Pat, and you can see that. You do have to use some of your predictive analysis and data to say, if you think, for example, we'll get to Will Zalatoris later, if you think he's going to be a future major winner, he's almost won a couple in hand here, he's probably a good guy to play because you could see him win this or come up close and then win the next one or something. If you already have someone, Rory as a major winner, looking in form now, coming back in strong, you're going to go and play it off of that, I think, more than just looking at the exact skill set.
How much are you going to weight, Ben, how well players fare at the Masters?
At the Masters?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's something to be said about having some top-end finishes at whether it's Augusta or a U.S. Open. Not the end-all, be-all, but yeah, I'd like to see something there unless it's a unique situation. So I'll look at that. I wouldn't cross off a guy I really like if, unfortunately, he hasn't mastered Augusta just yet, though.
No, because sometimes you see that come in the future, but between you have Faldo with its success at the Masters. Obviously, Jack, tremendous success. Tiger's won twice. These guys have won everywhere, but like Zach Johnson's really weird to pop up at both these places. And even like Louis wins. He loses in a playoff at Augusta National. And you kind of mentioned it when I went through the research show and looked back at like the past 4 iterations of the Open Championship at the Old Course. I think one year, like the top 17 guys on the leaderboard had all won a major championship at some point in their career. The best of the best are going to show up this week.
Yeah, if I could just say one thing, it's not to downplay it, but I do think the Augusta National comp, not just for this, we use it often at other courses as well with Bubba and with different guys. That to me is like the Gary Woodland comp of. There's a narrative.
Hey, the Gary Woodland comp worked this week.
It did. It's just so funny though. We talk about Neiman as the new Gary Woodland for that comp, but the Augusta National, of course. Like, it's a 90-man field, give or take, up to 100. You cross off 30 guys, you're down to 60. Of course, over the last 10 years, at some point, these dudes had some sort of effect. Maybe it's a little bit more here, and I wouldn't hate looking at it. I'm just saying I do feel like that comp comes up at a lot of places where it's like it's just because of the way it shells out. It's not really the comp. Of course, Zach Johnson won the John Deere, too. We could check the John Deere. There's going to be scoring. We could find that stuff out, too.
I mean, Jordan Spieth won there as well, so there's a clear... They all won Kapalua at the same time, so maybe there is something to if you are going to target shorter hitters and they do well with the John Deere, maybe that is something. Because there's a lot of like weird offset lies at the John Deere, like there is at Kapalua, like there is at the Masters, and like you're going to see this week at the Open Championship. Looking back, 2015, ZJ beats Leishman and Louis. Leishman, another guy with very good Augusta history. Day... he's come third at the Masters. Used to be really good there. He's not in the field this week, though. Jordan Spieth, Danny Willett, here he's a Masters champion. Justin Rose had lost in a playoff to a guy he tied in 6th place with in Sergio Garcia. But then you get like your randoms. The biggest difference, I think, between the Old Course and most of the other courses in the Rota that we see every 5 years, every 10 years, what it might be. You have Jordan Nybruge, who I have not heard from since, tied for 6th that week. And you had Ollie Schneider-Jans come tied for 12th, along with like Brennan Todd and Ashley Chesters and Anthony Wall. Like, the key to this week is, you got to get your top guys right, but everyone's going to have their preference of who the top guys are, Ben. But how do we find the sleepers? Because you put me back in 2015. I played this tournament on DraftKings. I was covering golf full time. I hadn't heard of like 3 of these guys.
Yeah, these are made up people, but it's a weird situation that So I'll say this just to open it up. I think one of the mistakes is going to be taking the random guys that finish well at the Scottish and assuming it's them. I would say that's not the move. It's just going to be guys that kind of fit with the lineups. Maybe they're on the right side of the draw, because I do agree if you're going against the wave stack, you want a better player. And we see that. Open Championship, links golf, specialties, guys that aren't on the PGA Tour, they can absolutely hang in this tournament. So I'm not going to be afraid to take some guys like I did at the Scottish that we really don't play on a week-to-week basis.
Let's jump in to the DraftKings pricing. Once again, everyone out there right now, smash the like button for the episode. And then give me your 6K guy that you don't mind going to this week at the Old Course for the 150th Open Championship and playing the DraftKings Listeners League. Let's get those spots filled as quickly as possible so we can set a precedent for next year's Masters and really max it out. Maybe we'll get like 150K of rake-free guaranteed money. We got to fill it quickly. It's the only way that we make it bigger at these major championships. The most expensive player in the field this week on DraftKings at the Open Championship is Rory McIlroy, $11,100. Scotty Scheffler, $11,000. Missed the cut at the Scottish Open. In the good wave at that. John Rahm, 10-8. Justin Thomas, 10-5. Colin Morikawa, the reigning champion golfer of the year, $10,300, and Jordan Spieth at $10,000 flat. You have Xander Schauffele at 99. You have Matt Fitzpatrick at 97. That's really the top end. Then like Zalatoris kind of drops down to the next year, at least in my mind of how I'm looking at how I'm just making 10,000 the arbitrary stopping point. You know, it's nice to do when people hit the time codes for this show and they can jump around to that spot. But I would throw those two guys in with the after Fitzpatrick, like Zalatoris, Smith, Cantley, Lowry, DJ, like all those guys. I feel like they are the official next tier down of what we're looking for. If we're thinking about like stacking 2-star guys, I would say that ends with Fitzpatrick at $9,700. Obviously, the pricing can work out differently than that. What do you think that the top 5 priced players in this field have in common at St. Andrews?
I don't know. Top 5 finish?
Ben?
Yeah. Rory's got one, but
Yeah, I don't have anything.
None of them played in 2015.
yeah, I knew about the Rory ankle injury. I remembered looking back into that, but
Scheffler and Rahm and JT and Morikawa just weren't around.
That's
Spieth
true.
is the other one. Spieth missed a 8-footer on 17 on the final day to miss being in that playoff. And Rory, obviously, in 2010 played here, had a very nice finish in 2010, but it's been over a decade since Rory played in a competitive event played in an Open Championship, because I believe he's played in the Dunhill Links. Steve and I went over that on the research show. It's just funny that like all of these best players are guys that have no experience really in an Open Championship format at this course. I don't think that matters. Obviously, Spieth came in and came fourth. Wasn't that big of a deal. Louis, who was 200-1 in 2010, just comes in and annihilates the field at St. Andrews. So where are your instinctive leans up here? Because if you go with like recent form, like everything just seems to point to Rory to winning this. I just worry because, as you mentioned, Tambo, making the rest of your lineups, if you use Rory, gets dicey quickly.
it's very interesting. I love that the contest this week for the comments is the 6K guys. I'll be reading the comments because it's hard to find the guys down there that I like. And when you go through it, like obviously you can find some names, pick some dudes, go make your lineups. But I was building some stuff last night in preparation for the show just to get a feel for it. And the Rory lineups didn't look that great on paper. Now, the interesting part, and what I was just, as you were talking, looking into it, that same top 5 comment was like Scotty, no history. Like I'm talking now, not just the Old Course here at 15, but like Rahm, not the best histories. Justin Thomas, not great. And then you go look, obviously Morikawa comes out of the gate, says he doesn't have a game, and then goes and wins the thing. So, but besides that, it is kind of interesting. Obviously Rory, Spieth, both have a good setup here. And then the other thing you mentioned, like it's a new world of content, Pat, but like we almost have to go 9,600 and up because I think Zalatoris is in the same conversation when people are deciding to build their lineups with Fitzpatrick and with Xander is just getting lumped in there all the time now anyway.
I mean, the way that I wanted to break that down, Ben, just a little bit to expand on that is I feel like very few people are going to start their teams with Zalatoris. I could see people starting their teams with Fitzpatrick, which inevitably just puts Zalatoris probably in that lineup. But Zalatoris is like the clear second man in on rosters, where theoretically I do think that people will start their lineups with Fitz.
I agree. I feel the same way about Xander as well. A lot of people will be very comfortable doing that. And it's tough. I feel like this pricing is very efficient up top, but I think Rory should be the most expensive player. It sets up perfectly for him. He should drive, just drive every green and be done with it. But at the same time, as you guys already talked about, it's not going to be the easiest build, both on just making a lineup that you like and then making a lineup that all the other Rory owners don't have. So you're going to have to think of some creative ways to do that. I'm not sure. My first thought when I was messing around was playing Rory and Rahm together. You still have a little north of 7 for the 4 spots. I think that's one way to do it, but that's a lot of salary with 2 guys tied up.
I think Scheffler becomes the really interesting guy here this week because he misses the cut at the Scottish. You mentioned that it's really difficult, even if you just have one Rory at 11-10. Like Scheffler's $100 less. There's no chance that Scheffler ends up higher owned than Rory or Rahm. Justin Thomas will get a pass from the Scottish because he's cheaper. Morikawa is an interesting little bit here. We'll see how Spieth finishes at the Scottish, but I'm using him at 10,000. Let's just kind of write that on the chalkboard. Like, use Jordan Spieth at Open Championships.
Right.
He has no finish worse than T30 in any of the past 7 turns at the Open Championship, regardless of the course. 4th here in 2015. Then you have Xander. He's had good Open Championship success. Obviously, Fitzpatrick is playing great golf at the moment. The Scheffler really does seem to be the one on the outside looking in of all of these guys. He could be the lowest owned of all of these top 7 guys.
I think it'll be him or Morikawa. You already said it, but Morikawa just gets squeezed the most, in my opinion. Like I said, JT gets the pass no matter what. We have a very interesting development or situation going on right now at the Scottish where Jordan Spieth and Xander are both up there. Fitz even climbed the board today. We're talking about this after, like, in the middle of round 3. So I think people will be very comfortable starting with those guys, or even 2 of them going from Jordan Spieth at 10K and down. So you'll see a little bit less ownership up top besides Rory. Rahm always gets a little bit. JT will get some, but I'm with you. Scotty will definitely be lower owned.
How often do you think Spieth is second man in, Ben, versus Spieth being the first person to start lineups with?
I would assume most people will. I would say if salary-wise, it's obviously a lot easier to start with Spieth, but Rory Spieth, like if Spieth wins the Scottish, he's going to definitely intersect both lineups. There's going to be plenty of people that go, I guess you could call it balance with Spieth up top. Then there's going to be plenty of people that go like, Rory Spieth or JT Spieth and have, mid-7s for 4 spots. So yeah. I think balance probably a little more, but you'll see both, especially if he finishes good at Scotland.
Is there a chance that if all 3 of these guys finish pretty well, like you can, even if Spieth wins, but Xander is second and Fitz is third, that kind of thing, or reverse order on all of them, that those 3 guys kind of eat their own tail because everyone will want to use some combination of, some people might start their lineup Spieth, Xander, Matthew Fitzpatrick and try to work off of it from there, or at least just use 2 of those guys would be my guess at the moment. If it's not Rory Spieth or Rory Xander or Rory Matthew Fitzpatrick or Zalatoris for that matter, it's going to be some combination of 2 of those 3 guys to start lineups.
Yeah, and I think Spieth Xander's just been so hot right now anyway, and he's still, again, he's up there right now. He could end up beating Spieth this week. We don't know how it's going to shake out, but you're dead on with the point. That's what I was kind of getting at here. I think definitely, and I think, like you said, maybe some do even go try and squeeze all 3, but then it gets to me where it's like tougher. If I'm doing that, I'm just going Rory with one of these guys and figuring it out from there. Ben was even saying you could do like a Rory Rahm and be comfortable with it. And it's not like you have too little on the table. It's just, like I said, it's harder to do. Lastly, I would say this, and we're going to get to the 8K range later. I think we like Louis. We've got Ben here. We're going to love Louis. But if you go like Rory Louis, if we could sell ourselves on that, because Rory's just awesome at the top and Louis 8,800, you have to skip so many guys. The FOMO of that type of lineup, people just can't do that, I don't think, where they can skip that entire 9K and all those other dudes that are up there.
I don't know if I think that works because that gives you Rory Louis starts 7,500 left for each of your final 4 spots. What if you just don't do that? You don't use Rory and you use Spieth and Louis.
That works too.
Now you have 7,800 left, Ben, that you could go down somewhere and then really pepper that $8,000 range if you wanted to. Because, like, looking at it right now, of the past 10 Open Championship winners, everyone except for Ernie Els in 2012 had either a win or 3 top 10s in their 6 starts prior to coming in. Like, that tells me something. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen again, but good lead-in form is absolutely essential for this week, especially at St. Andrews. Like, you just don't see guys come from nowhere to win this. And even looking at the Opens, like the odds on the guys who have won the Open over the past 10 years, Rory won as the favorite in 2014. He won at 14-1. Phil was 20-1 in 2013. The rest of it, Darren Clarke was 150-1. Louis was 200-1 in 2010 at this course. Other than that, it's like 33-1, 50-1, 35-1, 30-1, 28-1, 80-1. the guys who win these Open Championships generally aren't the top 5 guys. They're the next tier who ends up breaking through.
And that leads yourself, if you correlate that to pricing, that is like the 8K range. That's where you find those type of players, good quality players that have been on the cusp. They've won some tournaments, maybe not major winners. When I hear that type of name, I think of the Hattons and the Finaus and the Fleetwoods and the Sunjays of the world, and it's no coincidence we find them all in the same price range.
Rory would qualify, by the way, for the either win or the top 10s in their starts previous. Rahm would as well, shockingly enough, because it goes back to Mexico for him over his 6 starts. Scheffler, it's funny that Scheffler has the miscut. He actually does not qualify for this because he would have had the miscut and it bumps him off the list. But he does have 2 second-place finishes in his past 5 starts. I think people just forget that he became so good so quickly and was so dominant for a 3-month stretch that anything besides winning just seems like he had a bad week.
Failure. Yeah. The hot streak's over. The heater's done, they say. That's the comments on Twitter. But it's like you said, we know with Scheffler, he's getting squeezed no matter what. So I have no problem if you want to start your lineups with Scheffler, especially in high stakes. Rory's going to just skyrocket even more. And then Rahm always gets the love in high stakes, and he's cheaper than Rory by $300. I know it's not about the 300. It's just starting somewhere different, and people will do that. So Scheffler's getting squeezed even more the more you go up in money.
If we talk about the 2 squeeze guys, Ben, be it Scheffler or Morikawa, do you have a preference? Because I think I'm leaning Scheffler this time around.
I would lean Scheffler as well. The thing about, we'll see long term, and I'm not the one to speak on Morikawa, but I do think that Morikawa would be more susceptible to a lot of the high variance wind conditions than some of these other guys. Like in a pure scoring fest, great. I still think there are a lot of scenarios that we could see that really bump him down more than these other guys up top.
Other than that, from the top guys that I mentioned, Fitz and above, who would be, categorizing anyone as a safe play without knowing the weather and what their tee time is going to be. Even after that, you can't really categorize anyone as a safe play here. I feel like Fitz is pretty safe at this point.
Very. Yeah, and he's shown it. Like I said, we were going to see what happens at the end of the Scottish, but had a great round today, just showing he can do it again. So the U.S. Open factor, just going back to that, though, I want to tie this last point in because people love this on the Wednesday show, the old 2v2 special, Pat. The Rory Spieth, I know it's $200 off, but what about Scheffler, Morikawa? Thinking back to the U.S. Open, you're talking about the guy that came T2 and T5th. We've got Morikawa's run in majors as it is. The guy's the champion from last year. And then Scheffler, if people are sleeping on him, you take both the squeeze guys. You just have to find that $200 in the Rory Spieth lineups because there's a $200 difference somewhere else. And we can find $200 down low.
Yeah, well, it's funny. They were 2nd and 5th at the U.S. Open. They were 1st and 5th at the Masters.
Yeah. And we've got the defending champion or the defending champion golfer of the year and the Masters champion right now. So imagine that, and how many more people will have Rory Spieth if they're doing that?
Ben, do you think it's necessary to potentially do that, or do you think one is good enough if you wanted to just get a little bit? Because, if you use Scheffler or Morikawa to start your lineups, you can basically take whoever else you want because people just aren't doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it depends on kind of where your other 4 are going, not just because of the leverage. Like you said, I have a feeling you're going to be unique, but just because when you take 2 guys like that, you're talking about sucking up potentially a ton of placement points. So when you have high win equity guys, even though they're not, the most popular, to me, that's a totally different scenario and one that can be very lucrative just because you're not talking about a 6K guy and you're going to say, I'm going to try to get this other guy who's popular. I'm going to pivot. Like you're talking about guys that you're pegging to potentially win the tournament. And if they do that, they box out a million of the Rory lineup. So I totally get that. Not my preferred build, but I absolutely see the path, particularly in the large field tournaments.
Just trying to see, as I mentioned to you, that Jordan Spieth was the last one to come in and win the Open Championship. He had the best finish of anyone. He was T30 the year before in the Open. Most of the time, you're looking at miscuts the year before at the Open Championship. So it's not just Open Championship form, which leads you to hoist the claret jug. It's better form coming in, and then we'll work on it from there. So just looking at the guys who finished outside of the top 30 last year, like with a legitimate chance, I would think. Like Benjamin Herbert, I don't know so much about that. Bryson, I don't know so much about that. Although, theoretically, this is a great course for Bryson. I just have no idea where he's at the moment. But like Cam Smith, Justin Thomas, Max Homa. Doesn't Max Homa kind of fit all of these little things that we've been talking about?
Oh, yeah. I think so. And another guy I know from coming into it, I think it was Bogey Free. He had coming in. He rates up really well in 7,900. Got to think. And also, by the way, everyone probably knows this by now, but Berger withdrew. He is in the DraftKings prize pool right now for 7,900, or player pool, sorry. But so I think that's where that goes naturally. And then Homa coming off a good week this week, if he finishes strong, is going to lead to him being pretty popular. But like you said, for good reason, and the numbers bear out. So I kind of like that with Max Homa.
I'm just trying to figure out, because I have Spieth was the first person that I started this week. Just like I don't think that there's probably a better tournament for him, because even if it gets super windy, like accuracy means absolutely nothing almost at any British Open to speak of. Because you might get a bad lie in the fescue and throw out your back like Will Zalatoris and hurt your wrist last year. Or you have a fantastic lie, like every time Morikawa didn't hit a fairway or didn't hit the green last year. It's just like, oh, let's walk over to the fescue. Oh, it's sitting up. Perfect. Yeah. But you do have to get those breaks as you go through, and you're going to have to make your 8-foot putts as the week goes along to save those pars. We saw Molinari really do that at Carnoustie a few years ago at this point. He had the 2 wins coming in before he ended up becoming the champion golfer of the year. That if it gets super windy, just the guys who can bomb it as far as they can and can scramble, like that's going to be the path. The
scrambling's so huge. Like Spieth, you just talked about getting breaks. It doesn't matter. Even when he doesn't get the breaks, at some point we joke so much about the magic beans and stuff, and it's true. We know it. But the history also goes with it. Like he's done it so many times that it doesn't matter. And he's the guy that you can count on that if he does get an unlucky break, usually he still finds a way to get it up and save par or just make a bogey out of it and move on to the next hole and make the score from there. He can definitely score enough too. That's the thing about Spieth. 2 eagles today on the Scottish Open. Like, it just happens.
Yeah. I mean, that goes hand in hand with the magic beans, though.
That Ben does, but it's been so long.
Yeah, it's just like, Spieth's 156 from the fairway. Oh, eagle. Excellent.
Disturbing.
Yeah, it is at times.
Are there any guys that we can throw in? I mean, I think the obvious corollary always, and he actually had a nice Open last year, is Mackenzie Hughes, who somehow gained like 5 strokes putting on Friday at the Scottish and still finished 3 over.
I was just going to say, I don't know. Is he better than we give him credit for? I don't know.
No, he's not. He's exactly who you think he is. Like he's actually a really good play in majors, because it doesn't really seem to matter the quality of field for Mackenzie Hughes. He's either going to be like a top 10 performer, regardless of who he's playing, or he's going to be like the worst guy on the field. Yeah. He's like kind of Siwoo Kimmy in that way.
There's a good point. But like Siwoo Kim has a great career under his belt right now. I know it hasn't been the greatest as of late or what we're seeing in recent form, but I'm just saying, is Hughes better than we think? It hasn't bared out, but I think you nailed it there from a DraftKings perspective, especially that it's like, look, he's boom or bust. He is who you think he is, but you should play some of him if you're playing 150 lineups, because when he booms, it's like a top 10. It doesn't matter the field strength or who's there. So I like that call.
I'm upset that my guy Matthew Southgate let me down this week at the Scottish Open. I was really hoping he would get into the Open Championship. I didn't realize he wasn't qualified. But you want to talk about a guy who couldn't putt all week.
Yeah.
I think he missed like 8 putts inside 5 feet.
Yeah, lost almost 4 strokes on day one.
Yeah, I think for the week it was like 5.5 strokes putting. He was one of the leaders in approach, around the green, everything that you would want to see. Just dude couldn't end up making a putt. Yeah. So from this top tier, from this 10K tier, do you have like the one? Like, I assume it's Rory for you, Ben. Like, it has to. It's always Rory with you.
It's always Rory. Yeah. The problem now is that it's Rory. It was always Rory for me, and I was getting the leverage, and it was making it easier, even though it didn't work most of the time. Now it's Rory for everyone. So it's going to be Rory and Rahm. I know that's very generic. I'm going to have to figure something out, because I have not leveraged at all. And I like the guys that I think most people are going to be drawn to up top. Rahm is playing god-awful in Scotland. That can only help. I don't think that means anything. So I hope he shoots like 85 tomorrow and does something egregious.
I always like that guys who make a cut yet play very poorly on the weekend, that hurts them more than if they had just missed the cut.
Mm-hmm. And that's to go back to what you guys were just talking about. The guy who came to mind for me is Lucas Hebert, who was another Magic Beans guy who missed the cut in truly disturbing fashion. He's that type of player that gains randomly like 10 strokes around the green for no reason.
It's funny to go back and look at some of the trends. I got my crack research team on this, and I went through this on the research show a little bit of the top 10 qualified players on the final leaderboard from 2015 at St. Andrews. 8 of them were in top 30 of DraftKings average points for the season. 6 of them were top 50 in driving distance. No one and outside the top 90 in fairways gained for the year. 9 of them were top 10 in birdies or better gains. 6 of them were top 25. 4 of them were top 10. They were making a ton of birdies to offset the bogeys, and 8 of them were 45th or better in par 3 scoring during that season. So I just made a model of those 4 things, and it tells you exactly who you would think. The only one who's in there that is absolutely terrifying is Cameron Young.
Oh, wow. We're going back to him.
I mean, you can go back to Cameron Young at St. Andrews, Ben, at probably 2% ownership now.
And I'm not a big Cam Young guy, but I have intrigue there just because the sample size is still so small. A couple tournaments changes the narrative on these younger guys immediately for people. Like Cam Young was, just the next gigantic thing, and now he shot like 20 over, and he hasn't been good in the last month or so. You really don't even hear his name, so I'm not sure exactly what we'll do. Is it scary? Yeah, it's really scary. But how much do I have to devote to Cam Young? If I play 10% of him, that might be more than enough to get a healthy leverage spot.
Crazily enough, even with the miscut in Scotland, he had like the 80 million at the final round of the Memorial, ruined his career, misses the cut the next week, misses the cut the next week. So he has a 60th, miscut is his lead-in for him. He would still qualify for the 3 top 10s in the past 6 starts coming in.
Yeah.
So if he wins and then you retroactively look at it and be like, oh, the trend's continued, he would actually be one of the guys who fits it.
Yeah, and just thinking about the course too, like what we want, it's a perfect setup. When you go back to it, I think 7,800. I was just checking it again, just double checking something. But like again, we just talked about the burger spot with the withdrawal. We talked about Homa being right there and potentially being popular. And you can take a guy like Cam Young, who look right off the month, who cares? And he still fits the trend. But now he's got a wide open course setup that he can just go out and pound the ball out there, do his thing, maybe get some breaks that go his way, and ends up fighting his way through. So I actually don't mind that at 7,800. He's right there with old Bobby Mack at the same price. So
yeah, Bobby Mack let me down in my best lineup this week.
But he's good. What is he? Top 10 at the last 2 opens?
His last 2 opens, he is top 10. He was great at the Scottish too, until he missed the cut. Yes. Sometimes that happens.
That's true.
The other guys just randomly popping up with just that very strict modeling over the past 50 rounds, waiting only those things. Paul Boy Keegan is T12. Keith Mitchell continues to be up there. I'm just talking about guys at 8,000 and below. Max Homa, Harold Varner III, Gooch. Varner's an interesting one, only because he withdrew from the Scottish, not because of injury. So I think he wanted to go play with Tiger in Ireland.
Is that? I heard you mention that at the top of the show, and I didn't see confirmation of that anywhere.
I didn't see that he was playing with Tiger, but I heard he went to Ireland to go play Linksy style courses instead of playing at the Scottish.
Yeah, that's an interesting decision, to go do that and just say whatever. So he's actually, I like that about him because he's saying, look, it's all about next week, trying to get a major. Why not do this right now and skip the Scottish? So I always have interest in him. He pops for all these reasons like you talk about, and I think he's better than people give him credit for, kind of like the Mackenzie Hughes factor earlier, but he's been stronger than people think. People didn't want to play him at 9,700 in the Canadian Open that time, different field, different everything, but I thought his price was fair, and he had a good week there at that point. So I can definitely play some Harold Varner.
When I did the research show, Ben, do you know who was one name that popped up everywhere every single time, and I know no one is going to use, and he's $7,300?
Grillo.
Gooch.
Even though he's not Gooch.
Grillo's not 73. Grillo, him getting in. You thank Denny McCarthy for that miss putt, bumping him out of the Open and Grillo into the Open for you losing all your money this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thank him for what? That's an invoice situation, but 73 is a bizarro range. Reed, Poston, Bez, Gooch, and Mito. Tough names, big upside. But yeah, obviously Taylor Gooch has assumed the Grayson Murray villain role, which is always a lucrative position.
It is. And I mean, Ben and I used to talk about this for ages, and whether it was Patrick Reed, Ian Poulter, Sergio. Grayson was the biggest example because, very few people knew who Grayson was anyway at the time, and the people who knew about him just knew he was an absolute piece of garbage, and everyone hated his guts. So no one would ever use him on DraftKings, and then he just started stringing together top 20s. He won an event at one point, and he was just printing money for everyone every week at 1% ownership.
Yeah, the Gooch thing is definitely interesting because, like you said, he's already someone that people were not high on in these situations, and now you got the live factor, the comments, the Ryder Cups. He's going to find out what a crowd sounds like. I can tell you that here at the Old Course. But I think at that price, it's interesting to me more like what Ben said. You have a lot of other guys there too, and then right above it, I thought another guy you were going to mention that keeps popping up is Justin Rose.
Yes,
he keeps popping up everywhere. Sergio's that same price. Seamus Power, there's other guys.
Power keeps popping up for me too.
There's all these guys that are right there that this is where you can get different because they can't all get ownership. So you can just play your double up on a bunch of these guys in this range if you want.
And they all work with that Rory Rahm lineup, basically. Yep. You'd have to find one guy who's a little bit cheaper, and then you could play your Gooches and your Rose and Seamus Power and figure out a last man in. And I don't hate that lineup. I don't think it wins, obviously, but
Well, twofold. One, it would work, like you just said. It could win, especially if you got those guys up top.
yeah, you would need a Rory Rahm finish.
Yeah, you need something like that to happen. But I think what ends up happening that I like about it, and I always think about this from a roster construction perspective, is you're skipping over that upper 7K range where we just named Homa, Bobby Mack, Cameron Young, Leishman, Scott. Like, these guys are going to pick up steam as the week rolls on and we get into it. It's a first look. But we know that that's where some of the ownership's going regardless of what happens at the Scottish Open.
And Ben, I mean, what Tambo just said actually really prevailed for me at the Scottish Open on DraftKings. Now, Scheffler and Matthew Southgate wiped out alternating lineups to have great 6 of 6s, but I think like 90% of my lineups are 5 or 6 or 6 of 6 this week. I'm having a great week. It's not going to win any GPPs, but you just like look at like where my lineups are. They're all positive. They're all over 50% and well up into the money. And the biggest thing that happened to me this week with the type of builds that I wanted to use, I basically didn't use anyone between 7,500 and 8,200. And that's like where all of the popular guys who flamed out were. I didn't mean to do that, going to look like, oh, these guys suck or that guy sucks. It's just how I happen to construct my lineups. But sometimes that can be a really happy accident.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, it doesn't have to be fully conscious, but when you take big gaps like that, you just change the permutation. And if you get some of those wiped out, it immediately starts to lend itself to one type of build. So if you do that, where you pepper the low 7s, just realistically, there's only a couple ways to do that. It's either going to be like expensive guy, like middle tier guy, and then a bunch of the 7s, or like couple 9K guys and a bunch of the 7s. If that type of lineup works and the 8Ks crash, you're going to wipe out an extreme amount of ownership. I like to do things like that. Just wipe out big, stretches of it. And then when you add in the tee times, then it becomes even more dangerous with what you can get away with.
Like, looking at it right now, I don't know if I'm going to get to this, but I mean, I do want to play Neiman, but I could get away from Neiman. That wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. I could see myself not playing anyone from 7,500 to 8,200.
Okay, we're speaking the same language. So I was going to say twofold to time what Ben said and you just said. The range, I was going to use 7,700 and up, but if you got
Why, because you want to play Tiger?
Well, no, Adam Scott, I was going to say, I think we'll talk about it. Maybe he doesn't, but he should based on open history, this course, everything that's going on. I just
Masters winner.
There you go. That ties in. It ties in for everybody. Gary Woodland effect. But Cam Young.
Actually, that does not work for Gary Woodland. Very poor at Augusta National.
No, I know that. I'm talking about the Gary Woodland narrative. If you can say something about him always works. You can say that for the Masters for a lot of these guys. But you mentioned it, though. So Finau, Connors, Neiman, Homa, Bobby Mack, Cam Young, Leishman, Scott. We just talked about all these guys. That's going to be a bubble that, like Ben talked about, you could just skip over it. But it's twofold. If you are playing enough lineups, and a lot of them, I think you can also go into this bubble, but go into it in a different way. Go into it with your ROM, skip all of the 9K bubble. So that's where the bubbles matter.
And then you
in
play
your
them all
roster
together.
construction. And then you play a bunch of these guys on your other builds. And it's like a hedge naturally, but in both cases, you're doing something different than what the field's doing. And it's my classic saying, oh, it's not who you play, it's how you play them. And you're doing that perfectly in that example.
You spoke about Grayson Murray, Ben, and how you almost got it was like a refund from the government. Like, you guys just, if you play Grayson Murray, it's like good for you. Like, we'll give you money back at that point with the leverage that you create for the field. And that's what's going to happen to the live guys this week. You mentioned it with Gooch, but it's going to be all of them. No matter what, they're going to come in with lower than just generically they normally would in this situation. Even someone like DJ, who, I mean, he just performed pretty well at the U.S. Open. Obviously, he's been performing well on the Live Tour. And I think as we saw at the Scottish Open, so much of the noise was about Ian Poulter getting into this field, who was not playing well on the Live Tour, for one thing. Gets himself in, flames out 78 the first day, misses the cut, shoots 10 over par, and looks completely terrible. And that's going to be all the narrative. But Justin Harding, Adrian Otaegui, and Brendan Grace all come over from the Live Tour and play in the Scottish Open. All three of them make the cut and are looking pretty good. Like, I don't think you want to build like the all live lineup, but if it comes down to Cantlay versus DJ, for example, DJ is going to be lower owned at a much lower ownership, and he's riding pretty good form coming in.
I mean, the thing about what I'm going to use the live guys for is just straight pivots, leverage, kind of the cherry on top of lineups that I like. I don't actively like most of these live guys, and I think most people are going to look at that and not want to play them, but I'm going to force myself. Usti's in a different bucket because I actually do, but like, can I stomach playing Brooks?
Give me your top 3 live guys that you actually want to play if there are 3. I will go first. Louis, Gooch, DJ.
You want Ben to go second?
Yeah, Ben can go second.
Go ahead, Ben.
trying to think, is there anybody else? I mean,
Horsfield's down there.
oh yeah, that guy. Where's Andy Ogletree? He's not here, is he?
I don't believe he qualifies.
Poor bastard.
Like Bland is at 65. Laurie Cantor
Oh.
is at 65. Like, I don't think we're going to get to them because Tom Kim's right there. Just use Tom Kim.
Definitely like that call.
Oh, Wiesberger, does he count?
Yeah, I actually did a deep dive on Wiesberger on the research show. He's been like trash in Open Championships.
That's fine. He's due. Usti and if Paul Casey was useful, maybe, but I think I would have to mirror your three at this point. There's not a lot else that I like with those dudes.
But Brooks and Bryson would have to provide the ultimate leverage no matter what for both their ranges. I don't know what to do with them.
I don't really like either of them. I would be Brooks over. I know everyone's like Bryson could rip this course apart.
So
and all
could
this stuff.
Brooks.
I think a lot of people can. It's just my point would be that I would rather Brooks in that scenario, but I actually was with you. So Louis would be the obvious. Casey, I'm glad he brought up. We'll have to talk about him. The guy hasn't played golf in forever. His latest thing he's done is join Liv, so that's pretty much the only thing to go with him. But Harding, I thought was an interesting one from Liv.
Why isn't Reed interesting?
Maybe he is. I mean, like, again, back down to that price. I think you could go there. I don't think he's still the villain. Doesn't matter that he's on. Like, it's just as
He's
much.
more of a villain now.
Yeah, like it's the villain equaling to ownership as we're talking about. But I actually hope that Grace finishes the job here at the Scottish Open and gets in because he was the deciding factor last week. I wasn't sure why people wanted to go to Poulter. You and I talked on the Wednesday show about Grace.
You sold me on Grace, and that's one of the main reasons I'm going to
It was the perfect storm. He ended up coming in with like really low ownership overall from what it should have been at 6,700. No results involved. We talked about it well beforehand on Wednesday. So I was all there. I love that play for this week. I hope he finishes the job and gets one of those 3 seats in for this week because he is playing good enough golf. He won the Live event. I don't care what people want to say about that, and is now performing well at the Scottish.
Well, let's just throw this out here, Ben. What's a more impressive win that would indicate a win at the Open Championship or any big event? A win at the Pumpkin Patch on the Live Tour, JT Poston winning the John Deere Classic.
Yeah, it's obviously, I mean, that field was a totally different mindset. Say what you want about the Live guys. Again, it's just the perception. If nothing else, I think we know for certain the perception around these guys is negative right now, and that's going to lead to lower ownership regardless of their results. If they're playing great, they would be less popular than if they were playing great somewhere else. If they're playing terrible, they'll even be lower owned than if they were playing terrible somewhere else. So it's a natural buy spot if you can stomach it, and I will do that with some of these dudes.
On Wednesday, we spoke about, we discussed the Open Championship pricing and how much was going to be dictated of what happens in Scotland. You know a guy no one's going to use anymore? Adrian Moronk.
Yeah, that's right. 7,700 this week. And yeah, what is he in this field? I didn't even look at his price.
No one's going to look at his price anymore. He had his time. He's $7,100. He's the same price as Ryan Fox, who everyone will and probably rightly should gravitate towards. Down here near the bottom with his recent results, he battled back to make the cut at the Scottish. I mean, people always like that. When someone goes out, I mean, it's like Paul talks about in the UFC. You want that guy that fights for your money. You don't want the Scotty Scheffler who kind of looks at it and be like, I'll go practice at the old course here. That's fine.
That's what it seemed like. Funny enough, they put everyone there. So it's Ryan Fox, Moronk, Victor Perez, of like the Euro dudes that were coming into this week that had such a separation in price. It was 8,500, 7,700, and 6,900. Now, and again, it came out after the fact, but they just plugged them all at 7,100. It was like, let's see what happens at the Scottish, and then you guys make your choice at that price next week. But I think you're onto something there. But we'll talk. Do you want to talk about Ryan Fox? Like Ryan Fox did what we said he would do. He's almost DFL. He made the cut. He made the cut. He was 8,500, ridiculous. People were jumping to bet him at 45, ridiculous. Like 2x the price that he's usually at, 10x the field. Well, what happened?
It's funny because the exact situation. I mean, you gave me Tom Kim, you gave me Brendan Grace. That really helped. Saved me from a lot of Matthew Southgate. I appreciate that. But I think the direct conversation that we had in terms of DraftKings pricing last week was, why would you play Ryan Fox at this price when Neiman's like $100 more? That doesn't mean that Neiman's going to beat Ryan Fox, but just look at the talent disparity between them. Like
guys beat him that we made the argument for. It's not necessarily a full victory.
He beat Sungjae.
And I would play Sungjae all day over him. My point was just still like at the 45 and 50, and then just playing him and expecting him to come second tier because he came second in all the second tier events, if you will. It's the same. Now he's 7,100. Make your choice there. But I feel like this would be a better spot. You talked about it plenty, like more Linksy, more real Linksy, which is what his actual setup is usually good for. And does he really go back to back and not come out strong? If he can make the cut this week, I think he can make the cut next week. And at 7,100, I think he could find his way out. Now it's a better price to get involved at.
Listen to these $7,100 guys, Ben. Poulter, Fox, Perez, Francesco Molinari, Adrian Moronk, Gary Woodland. Everyone's just going to use Woodland, aren't they?
You'd think.
Yeah, based off this week. I mean, I obviously will just go to Peters, $100 more.
No,
which
no,
is the correct answer.
No, the correct answer is use Jordan Smith at $7,200.
No, that guy, he's the Sam Ryder of Europe. He's another one. Just give him a hole-in-one for zero reason. When he was chalk, he'll be on the PGA Tour soon enough. But yeah, you got Peters just lurking. He didn't even need to play in Scotland because his game is in such good shape. He's just chilling, getting ready.
Jordan Smith actually would qualify for what we're talking about here for his lead-in form. Like, he had 2 top 10s and 3 consecutive top 25s. Actually, no, that's not even true. He had 6 consecutive top 25s coming into the Scottish Open. And he's probably going to finish at least top 25 again, if not way better at the Scottish Open. Like, he's someone who's been lurking around the DP Tour for ages now.
Oh,
he is.
I know.
He's English.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when you're scrolling for Jordan Spieth on the leaderboard and you see Jordan Smith, it's like, oh, yeah, perfect Spieth. Oh, no, it's Jordan Smith. Who's Jordan Smith? He could be I know Baroff was all over him this week.
He's been on him. That's why I know. I was going to say, Baroff, it's like his favorite dude. So we talk about him every week. And he's like, oh, look what he's doing again. And look at his approach
But
numbers.
he actually is
can't
doing
putt.
stuff. He's doing like the slightly less version of Ryan Fox type stuff. But he's going to be like 1/8 the ownership.
Oh, for sure. I get what you're saying fully. I'm saying, again, we get into a same sort of setup here. I'm not saying it's the Ryan Fox setup of this week, but you do still have to think about it a little when you look, like you said, Patrick Reed, JT Poston, Harold Varner, Keegan Bradley, Russell Henley.
But, like, I mean, yes, JT Poston did it at the Travelers and ended up coming second, then wins John Deere. John Deere was like worse than a DP World Tour event.
Same or worse. I don't disagree. I'm just saying we're talking. Use the other guys I mentioned. And my point would be, like, if you loved Keegan this week, which we did, at 7,900, he drops to 72. I think it's just better caliber, and I think, again, you'll have to make that call, but I think that matters. Like, that's everyone. Oh, Europe. We don't just have to play Euros because it's in Europe. That's not how it hands.
It doesn't, but I do think that there's an inherent advantage for like your lesser players in this field, whether they be lesser DP guys, lesser live guys, lesser PGA guys, that the experience that a lot of the European players have at this style of course, I do think could be a tiebreaker.
It could, and it does, but I also think we see those names on the leaderboard more at these events because they're in those.
In these events.
This
yes.
week's co-sanctioned, even more got in. So of course we see them. Everyone's like, "See, I told you the Euros would get to the top." No, more got in the field. That's why more are up there. But we'll still see who shakes out and wins the thing. But I don't know. To me, it's just the talent level that's there. I liked even Ben's call. Thomas Peters is a guy we've been waiting to see pop. I knew he lost to Haotong in that playoff, and Haotong went absolutely nuts. There was a handshake there. People gave our guy Haotong a hard time for that. He's going through a lot of stuff, man. Afterwards, he was very emotional and everything. Like, it was a tough time. He still gave a little dap up to Peters there and moved on. But I think there's other talents in this range that I have interest in beyond what people will play. Woodland, like you said, will be popular too.
Haotong is a play at $6,900. We have to go to the official Keegan Bradley whisperer of the Pat Mayo Experience to figure out what we are doing with Keegan Bradley this week. Paul Shaughnessy behind the camera. Is this a spot for Keegan Bradley?
I mean, everything's always a spot for Keegan Bradley. But if I learned anything from this week, it's that the UK is not an extension of the Northeast. He cost me all of my money. But yeah, I'm playing Keegan, but tread lightly. He may have lost it. He was so good for so long there. He had such a good run.
Yeah,
making all the cuts.
Time to start a new run.
7th at the U.S. Open. We talked about that one.
I mean, it'll probably be like 1/3 of the ownership that he was this week.
Who do you think ends up being the guy from like $7,000 to $7,500?
Ryan Fox.
I do think that some of it gets scaled back on Ryan Fox. Like, if he had a good week this week, I feel like he would have been 25% owned. Mm-hmm. Because he didn't. 15?
I still think less. I got a feeling that it's less.
Like, people will talk themselves out of them now.
And he was so bad. Like, again, we'll see what happens. He could still have a great round.
He made the cut. Like, it wasn't that bad.
He made the cut. I'm saying, but if you saw, I don't know if you saw today's numbers, I think he's almost last.
Oh, I did not see.
Yeah, so like he really pushed it backwards today. I think it was 7 over at one point when I looked today at the beginning. So
it's Gary Woodland. I'm sorry.
It's gonna be Woodland.
If Woodland finishes this week in the top 20 even.
So he got some back, but Ryan Fox has to
he finished better than Ron.
+3, so he's T62 on the tournament for after 3 rounds for him. But in going back to it, we didn't have this conversation. I think it's important, but Paul Casey and Tiger Woods, 7,500, both sitting right there. They're in the squeeze of what we talked about of, are you going below to the $7,300 guys? Like we mentioned a bunch of them, and the Rose, the Gooches, all those guys, or are you going up to the Homas or the dudes up top? What are we doing with Paul Casey and Tiger Woods?
I'd play... Casey hasn't played since he kept WDing from the match play.
From all those WDs.
Yeah, but he
God.
actually like took a shot at the match play and then
Yeah.
WD'd each of the ones. So the time we saw him before that, he was third at the Players' Championship.
With the divot.
And that was the end of him.
Gosh.
Is that where he hurt his back? Trying to hit under that divot at the Players?
It sounds like it could be.
Either
it's the last
way.
shot that he took really before match play.
It was him and Louis in 2010 at this course. He's someone with the Masters experience. He's now a live guy. That's official. So, I mean, he's on the Crushers, I think. I mean, which makes sense. The dude has gigantic forearms.
Yeah.
He is going to be crushing out there.
Bryson is so excited to have him on his team.
Bryson's so excited. Like everyone else is like really embarrassed to play on the Live Tour, but they kind of like do it because they get paid so much money. Bryson's the only one who's actively like pumped to be on the Live
He gets
Tour.
his whole content team to follow him around now. He loves that. He's the one that's, I think, is the most open about the shorter, plays less thing. It was, I thought they want to spend time with their families. No, it's not what he's saying. He's saying I think he's just going to quit golf. I think in 4 years, when this contract's up, he's going to take those hundreds of millions and already have it parlayed into all this other shit and just be like, I'm good. Thank you.
I don't know if I like Casey or Tiger more.
I think I like Casey. I want to hear Ben's take.
I think I like Tiger, Ben.
I think I like Casey.
I mean, the two best players of our generation in the same price point. So I think I'd go Casey. I can't play Tiger. I'd love to see him play well, but it seems pretty far-fetched. Not that means Casey's going to play well either, but I think if I was going to take a blind stab, it would be with Casey.
I think this is what Tiger has been building his year towards. And I don't think that Tiger would be playing in this, honestly, if he didn't think that he had a legit chance of... I think that he thinks he can win this. I don't think that he thought he could win the PGA Championship. I think at the Masters, making the cut was a big success for him. That was what his stated goal was. But he's not skipping the U.S. Open to get ready and prep his entire year for this event. It's the biggest of all the majors this year. It's the 150th Open Championship. He's won here twice. And if the wind starts picking up and like gets dicey, like there's no one in this field who's like relatively like outside of... I mean, it probably is him at this point with more experience at this course. Like, hey, do I just bump it out over there and it rolls down to the hole? Like, if conditions get dicey, Tiger's going to be looking good.
Oh, gosh. Man, they can put me on whatever billboard. You can put me on anything to rip in this play. There's just no way. Absolutely not. I don't care. He couldn't play the U.S. Open because he couldn't walk at the previous. He had to withdraw after 3 rounds because his leg looked bionic, like it was pulling apart. We've since seen the sleeve off picture where the leg looks like siphoned off. I love Tiger. If he wins, I'll be the happiest person in the world for like the old course, the most incredible walk off. Just retire. If you win this tournament and it's over, just be done, because I don't care what records you want to hit. That would be the best achievement of all time. But I just don't see it. And even at 7,500 for DFS purposes, I don't see it.
I don't know if I can get there, but I will bet you guys that Tiger scores more DraftKings points than Paul Casey.
I'll bet that with you for sure.
Ben?
Sure.
I forget what happened with our last bet. We got to start a tab here. We'll do that bet.
Yeah, I've been doing that on the football shows too. I've been making a whole bunch of
make bets.
I actually have like a piece of Bristol board behind me.
We need to get you a whiteboard up on the wall.
Yeah, we can just go and like put them in.
And that's like your segment. You walk over, pat to the whiteboard. But
how many people do you think you're in the studio? No one's behind those cameras.
We need to get Paul doing multiple
Pat's
setups.
out of focus over here, writing stuff down, trying to run back to sit in the center of the frame.
Now we make it a thing, the whiteboard cam, and it just goes to it. That'd be cool. But the other thing I was going to say is that, what was I going to say? Tiger. Oh, to make the cut bet. We did it at the Masters.
I think he makes the cut.
It's not going to be out yet. I think he'll make the cut.
Which is more I can say about Paul Casey.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think I could say more. I think Paul Casey's way better. We just don't know. You're taking the risk on if he's healthy or not. But if
you're doing that with Tiger,
I was doing that with Casey, exactly. And I was doing that with Casey and taking the 10% loss on the withdrawals. Like just taking the shot on him at 3 or 5%, taking 10 and hoping that he comes out, because he does rate out better no matter what. So I think that's, for me, the play that I would do there. And again, full disclaimer, you don't have to play either of them. We just went to this as a segment, but you can skip both of them, no problem.
Yeah, you can. And that's why I might not get to Tiger, because you have Seamus Power at 74, Rose, who, thank you, Justin Rose, for blowing up Saturday at the Scottish. Now no one wants to play you. Pat will still happily play Justin Rose at $7,400. Like, He's been pretty good. Even at
8-0.
the majors, he's been pretty good. And then you have Gooch at 73. Like, I think I'd rather play those three guys instead of Tiger. But Paul Casey wouldn't be the one I'd play over Tiger.
Yeah, I actually, and just so I say it too, because we didn't talk about it much, I like Scott. I don't know if he's going to get popular or not. Again, we do first look for a reason, but just 7,700, good course history at this course, good open history at opens, and just in general, he's priced fairly for what I think he should be. He's less than the average on DraftKings. You can play him. He should make a cut. He can get you top 30 upside. He can score well enough, and then who knows how the weather goes or how that works out for him, but I think he's interesting at 7,700.
Let's jump back up before we get to the 6K range. Once again, smash a like to the episode, sub to Mayo Media Network, and in the comment section on the YouTubes, tell me your favorite six, or hell, give me all your favorite 6K plays. Tambo wants to sift through them to see if we can find anyone. I know that Ben, Tambo, and I are probably all going to kind of be on the same 6K guys, at least initially. There's certain guys that we just like who are in the 6K range that we just tend to use a lot of the time. So we'll figure that out. But the one spot of this board that we have not talked about is basically 7,700 to 9,500. And we know that's where most people populate, like the chalk plays are going to be in here. Do you have any lane? I like Corey Connors, and I like Louis, and I like Shane Lowry. Those three guys. Outside of that, I can kind of be talked in or out of anyone.
I like Lowry for sure with you. I don't again, if you're talking about form coming in, that's how he did the last one, right? Like that's just what it was. And that's always been the thing, like you talked about earlier, how it shakes out before you get into the event. So I definitely like the Lowry call there. Cam Smith, right at 9,500. Again, he made the cut, squeezed in on the number. Played well today, just bounced back. He's sort of sitting in the middle of the pack there. But I think, again, when people go to Zalatoris, he failed them this week, but he's like JT now. He gets a pass. People are going to go back to Zalatoris next week. I like Cantlay a little bit in that range.
You fucking love Cantlay.
Yeah, I think he's better than people give him credit for. That's the main thing. Majors hasn't shown up as much, but in general, like people just are quick to write a guy off. His heater wasn't that much different besides a major than Scotty's back then. I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying when you're talking to a guy that still is considered higher level and the wins that he had.
It's weird though because I mean, it really got hammered home. Like the events that Scheffler won, even the minor event that he won, is like the most watched one. Like winning Waste Management and beating Cantlay in it too is like that's something that has a lot of like casual eyeballs on.
Thanks for reminding me of that, because that's another point. Exactly, he could have beat him in that one, and that's another win to his belt. He could have won the RBC Heritage, the plugged lie against Jordan in the bunker. Spieth ends up winning it. He carries Xander's ass in the team event. Xander did nothing, missed a 5-foot eagle on the last day even. Like he couldn't help them at all. Cantlay carries them to that win, and then Xander wins the Travelers. And like what a different setup it could have been. Cantlay in the final group of that, by the way, has a bad final day while Xander takes off into the glory as Thigala makes the dumbest decision ever on 18, and then he goes and makes the birdie to put the emphasis on it.
Thigala in this field with the Daniel Berger withdrawal. No DraftKings price as we're speaking right now.
He'll get one.
He's playing well.
Yeah, what do you think he gets priced at? 71?
No.
Adam is another cheap guy?
No, he is less than 71.
6,800?
I'm going to say, no, he's more than Griot. He has to be more than Griot. Yeah, 68 or 67 would be my guess.
Okay.
Where he ends up coming in. Like, can you really price him higher than Chris Kirk? No, would be my answer.
Yeah. Who else here? Burns. We didn't talk about him. Burns having a great season.
Well, here's the entire range. It's from like Zalatoris, Smith, Cantlay, Lowry, DJ. I have interest in DJ. Hideki, Hovland is a really interesting one to me. Burns, Louis, Hatton, Tommy, Brooks, Finau, Sungjae, Connors, Bryson, Neiman. Then you got Berger's WD, but then Homa, Young, Bobby Mack, Leishman, Adam Scott, Answer, Webb, Billy Horschel, and then Paul Casey and Tiger Woods. Like, Homa's going to be really popular.
Yeah.
Probably justifiably so at this point. Outside of that, who is going to be the other? Like, is Burns going to end up being what Spieth was this week? Like, why is he $8,900? Let's just use him.
Could be. Again, if you're taking the whole season into effect. Interesting that you said Hovland was interesting, because what's interesting? I don't know if he's going to fit any trends. I know that you don't need to chip as much around here, but nothing worked. And I know last week was
different. He didn't even have his clubs this week.
Yeah, but he just, what has he been doing though? It's just been absolutely nothing.
No, he's been awful. He's been truly awful.
Yeah.
But I mean, just interesting from a perspective of everyone now knows that he's been playing poorly.
Yeah.
Everyone has now gone through a cycle of being like, Victor Hovland, Ben, low-owned guy. I'm going to use Victor Hovland as my leverage play. He sucks. Now everyone's just like off of Hovland. It wouldn't be the craziest thing to see Hovland pop up at this type of course. Like, this type of course kind of suits him really well.
Maybe. I might be with you by Wednesday. I didn't deep dive much of what the other stuff around it. Again, I want to see ownership and how the odds come out and all these factors. So maybe it's just like a crazy leverage play in there. But I think
is. Like if Burns is 21% and Hovland projects as 5%, you are going to use Hovland. Correct. I know you are.
Yeah, you know what I'm doing. But that's where I'm saying we'll have to wait and see how it shakes out. But I mean, even Hideki, we didn't talk a lot about him. He's right there underneath DJ.
Coming off an Ander curse. Hideki has been so cursed, Ben, the last 2 times out. And Cuss will be on the show on Monday, and I'll confront him about this. This year, he uses Hideki. Hideki misses the cut and immediately joins the Live Tour. The last time he had used Hideki, the 2020 Players' Championship, which caused COVID.
Yeah, both poor Hideki. I know that one, not to hijack the show, but of all the defections to Live, this one is going to hurt the worst. I'm going to miss Decky. I'm going to, just to throw a couple names in there, I like Fleetwood and I like Tony Finau. I know Finau always garners some ownership, but I think this sets up well for him. And then Fleetwood is just Fleetwood. I don't really have anything to say. I just play him and hope that eventually something good happens. But I think there's names in the mid-8s that won't be overly popular because there's none of these guys besides like Brooks are going to be crazy low owned either. The ownership can't be that condensed.
And I think with the builds that we were talking about earlier, it's just very hard to get from everyone just wants to drop. Everyone will just drop to $8,000 and play Neiman as like the start of the popular guys to fill out their lineups. Like Neiman, Homa. I doubt people are going to use Young. Scott might pick up some ownership. Leishman, good Masters history. Finished second at this course. I can see the case for him. But Neiman and Homa in particular, I think are the two that are just going to really build up this bottom or top of the 7s. And it's really going to filter away because I can fit in both those guys. That means I can play Xander and Fitzpatrick or Rory and Will Zalatoris at the same time.
Yeah, one last thing I'll add on that just to tie into it is that I'm seeing a build right now in my mind, so I'll mention it. But like you just talked about it, when you do the Rory builds or you do the ones up top like we talked about earlier, I feel like anyone can win this thing. We've talked about it, but I feel like you have 2 potential winners in there and then 4 guys that there's like a couple iffies or maybes in there. When you do like a Cam Smith Lowry build, you can easily do like a Cam Smith Lowry Louis, another 8K guy and 2 7K guys and have a balanced build where I actually feel like Cam Smith, Cantlay, Lowry, Hideki, Louis, like you could have 3 winners that you feel like in your lineup where the winner could come from that trio and actually feel like that. The odds should show it too, and then still fill it out with a similar 3 that you'd be filling out the 2 upper guys up top, where if you just don't get those 2 guys going off, I think that's a unique build for sure.
I mean, if you just start your lineups with Lowry.
That too, yeah, or with him, yeah.
You go like Lowry, Louis, Finau, Connors, Homa.
Right.
And that gets you away from the potential chalk of Homa. Or even Lowry, just because no one is going to start their lineup.
They're not going to start there, and you've got the 3 winners plus maybe another surprise winner.
I mean, I would say that Connors probably has the least expected value of a win of all 5 of those guys, but I don't hate this course for him.
Right.
He was top 15 at the Open last year. He's played really well at Augusta National over the course of his career. Why not?
A top 10 wouldn't surprise you, though.
Yeah, no, if he came 14th, that's fine.
We said earlier we could see Mac Hughes coming in top 10, so it's like we're talking about Connors now. So I'm with you on that. That's where I'm saying it's definitely unique, and I know it's tough to leave the top off, but things happen, especially in Scotland, especially with wind, especially at these types of courses. We just saw it this week. Look at how many big names. What was it? Morikawa, Hovland, Scheffler, JT, like a bunch of guys like that just take off, man. It just doesn't work out. So we'll see.
Do you have any thoughts on Hovland, Ben?
I think that it can't, famous last words, but it feels like it can't get much worse for the pure talent he has, particularly off the tee. So if I rev it up with like, Rory and Keith Mitchell and some of these other guys, I'll put Hovland in those lineups just blindly. I don't think that he's playing well. I don't think that there's much to think his around the green game is going to turn around, but I do think in certain metrics, with the ownership that's going to come along with it, he's definitely in play in those builds. Going to try to avoid it because it's scary, but I will push him into my driver heavy lineups.
Yeah. And I think the driver heavy is where you really want to be with a lot of this stuff. I did make another, after I talked to Steve Banford on the research show, we went through kind of the things that we thought were the most important. I did put in proximity 125 to 150. That might not be, I can switch that out right now. And I'm just going to throw in short game. Or try to find a better product. What do you think would be like if you wanted to just take one key proximity range this week, Ben? What do you think it would be? Because obviously it's different for everyone.
I mean, Yeah, I would tend to lean towards like shorter.
75 to 100.
Yeah, 75 to 100, even though it's a noisy range. But like,
Oh, of
I
course.
really do believe, those guys, you're going to see those shots. You're just going to see really awkward distances. And that's where guys like, I don't know, when I think of that distance, I think of,
Speed.
I mean, like JT and those type of players that can just dial it in and save par sometimes by
JT
sticking it to 4 feet.
JT, Cam Smith, Jordan Speed.
Yeah, Cam Smith.
Like those are the guys that we're thinking of here. It's funny because the number one guy in the world from that range over the past 50 rounds is Justin Thomas. Cameron Smith, number 6. Sam Burns, number 7. Scotty Scheffler, number 9. Max Homa, number 3. This is only just leading us towards more chalk and Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, but if you, like you said, Scheffler's already going to be unique because we got Rory up top. But that's why the bucket thing is so tough. And it's just funny because we were talking about Hovland. I go back and like he's been so good on approach, like all this stuff that I'm ripping him up for. But like you look, 21st, 41st, 27th at the Masters. Before that, it was 9th at the Players, and then he was good at the Arnold Palmer and the Genesis. And you just see these approach numbers. Forget the buckets for a minute. Just like the fairways are open. He pounds it. He's really good off the tee. Now he gets a nice approach in there. He gets these larger greens. I'm not sure. I didn't check like his exact lag putting stats. I know you were looking at some of that stuff.
Yeah, he is one of the worst in the field from beyond 25 feet putting, and he is one of the worst in the field at 3-putt avoidance.
Okay, but then we look at it from the other angle. Again, that's
He
probably
hits it
right to look
closer.
at, but he oftentimes hits it closer than that. And if you're playing him and you're expecting that week out of him, if you're playing him in your lineup, putting your money behind it, then we should expect to have to avoid that. And maybe he does make those into pars, and then they turn into birdies and all that. So he is intriguing from that perspective. I will circle back and just walk it back a little bit on him there. But like you said, there's those other builds. They made me think of another one. Like what about like JT Smith? And then down from there, like that's another build that I just think is going back to, you're skipping some of the main most popular guys in Xander, Spieth, Rory, but you still have JT and Cam Smith, 2 of the guys that have been pretty hot this season, and you could still play other guys around them, no problem.
I think a very unique way to get access to 2 popular guys is Thomas and Lowry as your start.
Yeah,
And
that's
then go
nice
from
too.
there. Number 5 and number 2 in bogey avoidance so far this year. Matt Fitzpatrick is actually number 1. But it just feels like if you use Justin Thomas, like, oh, I've saved some money off the very top. I can definitely play Spieth, Xander, or Matthew Fitzpatrick. That just going to Lowry, I do think makes some sense. And then you still have access to this $8,000 range if you really wanted to.
And in those builds, I've got no problem with it because then you pick up more of those guys that actually could also be the surprise winners. So you're almost putting like more win equity in secretly. It's what you believe though when you're building. It's not what's on paper. I'm saying where you're saying these guys, it wouldn't surprise you if Finau won. Some people would say that's crazy, but could it happen?
No, yeah, I agree.
So, you know what I mean? When you put him in there, it definitely could happen. He's 8,400. And you say, yeah, but he always picks up ownership. Yeah, but I'm starting with JT and Lowry. So I'm already pretty unique off the top.
Like, Ben, if it was down to you and it was between Hatton, Fleetwood, and Finau, who do you think you would play in your lineup?
That's
Trick
self-exclude territory. But
Fleetwood.
I think it would be Finau. I can really get on board with those guys. I was really heavy on Hatton at the Scottish. I like that spot. He disgraced himself once again, but I think that Finau's just quietly, playing good golf. And I don't think the ownership, even though it's Tony Finau, is going to be comical around him just because of the nature of the range.
That I can see too. It just feels like this $8,000 spot, like outside of Sam Burns. Maybe there will be some sort of bull case for Finau, Hatton, or Fleetwood. Fleetwood's probably the one people love playing Fleetwood and people love playing Finau. It's like how people love playing Xander Schauffele. And Xander is now currently winning the Scottish Open by 2 shots as we speak.
Xander's going to be 100% owned, which will be an interesting game theory situation. He's another one. I don't know, Pat, if you have that list you just had. He's another one with short. It seems like with short irons, he just automatically makes it.
He does. He rates out just really odd with a lot of stuff, but I mean his form is impeccable. He's winning pro-ams. He's winning real events. He's winning team events. And he has pretty good history at the Open Championship. I could see myself not playing him because I lose money all the time. And that would be the ultimate, obvious lose money move. It's like when I didn't play Scheffler at the Masters, despite looking at him and be like, if there was no prices next to these guys, I'd take Scotty Scheffler. Like right now, what's the case against Xander Schauffele?
Almost nothing. And it's just going to be another win for him. And you talked about the form and the trends and everything that goes with it already, the stats, everything. 9,900 is just a bad price. So you're gonna have to find a way to get different. Start your lineups with him. Maybe use him as a second guy in and do it that way, where you have to get more aggressive at the bottom, but you still pick up like a Rom or a Scheffler in the lineup with him. Do it that way. I mean, you just gonna have to make your decision on a guy like Xander when he's 9,900.
He's actually the perfect guy to pair with Morikawa. Like if you wanted to get away from some of the Xander chalk, Morikawa is the very logical person to put him with if Scheffler is too expensive.
Yeah, Spieth Willie Z is the same price as if you just go up 300 to Morikawa and then. Yeah, I know it's a little bit off, but I'm just saying in general, the 2v2s there will be the key to the week if you look at it from that perspective. And at 9,900, Xander was going to be popular already. Now you just made me look at it, and Tringali went backwards and he went upwards, and we might even get RCB now too. Rafa Correa.
Oh, Rafa Correa Bayo. There we go. Yeah. That wouldn't be so bad. 6Ks. Who are we rounding this out with? Actually, let's talk about, Ben, how necessary do you think it's going to be to play 6K guys this week? Because I think at Open Championships over anything else, it actually is pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, can you build effective lineups that are very balanced and end with Gary Woodland? Yeah, absolutely. But the difference, the number of guys, not just, I feel like on a traditional week, talk about 6K guys saying, they can make the cut, they can get you some good scoring. At the Open Championship, some of these guys can get into the mix. There's no doubt about it. So it's a lot more pressure if you omit the range. There's a million names. I would assume the majority of my lineups will have at least one 6K guy.
Danny Willett was 6th at the Open Championship in 2015. Fantastic Open Championship record. Won the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship a year ago on the DP World Tour. Not in super great form at the moment, Danny Willett, but he's $7,000. Obviously, another guy who fits that old Augusta mix. And the harder you make the tournament, the better. It's almost like the low case version of Will Z that you talked about. That it has to be kind of hard for him to win. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, on these links style courses, even going back to when he was a full-time DP World Tour player, links courses, he just has the around the green figured out at these spots. That's his biggest advantage at this. I think at $7,000, he's not going to be popular. I actually like him quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And everything that you said tied into it. It's just the way it works sometimes, and they just know the course, figure it out. Again, I think it'll matter more. I would ask you this, do you lean differently if it looks like there's going to be no wind and we're getting 20 under, 22 under or something like that? Or
I don't know, because I don't,
care.
If you told me that on Thursday morning at 1:15 a.m. Eastern time, an hour before lock, that it looked like it was 4 days without any wind, I would just assume by Friday afternoon it's gusting up to 60 miles per hour, just because that happens here.
Yeah. No, that's true for sure. That's why I wondered if that would bear anything out, because you're in on him only because of that. But I think that does stand out. I think even when he did well here in 2015, I think it was before he won the Masters.
It was in 2000. He won the
That
Masters.
was part of his lead-in form going into it.
He has played the Open Championship 8 times in reverse order from 2021 to 2013. 33rd, 6th, 24th, 76th, 53rd, 6th, miscut 15th.
Yeah, shows up with them, man. And you mentioned Mitchell earlier. I kind of like going back to some of the same guys. I just had to look at the leaderboard right quick. My guy, Tom Kim, just crushing it today, up to T7. So he's going to pick up a little bit of steam, but I don't know if he'll pick up that much. And at 6,500, I was still interested in going back to him. I talked about strength of field last week and how that was the reason I liked him over many others, because he'd actually shown up in strength of fields that were similar or close to, at least, in majors and stuff like that. So that were recent, and it's very, it's shown itself to work out quite well this week. So I'll go back to him. Who's the other guy I had tagged here?
I had Keith Mitchell, Hao Tong, Mackenzie Hughes, Tom Kim, and that's all I had so far. Of course, I can be talked into many of players down in the 6K region. You talk me into some down in the description as well. I think I would want to find the main skill outside of either history or how recent form, lead-in form is. I want to be looking with bombers with a short game.
It's a good way to look at it for a tiebreaker. You can, if weather becomes a factor, we can go there. Chris Kirk was someone that I liked for this week. Had some good history coming in. He's fell down the board a little bit here this week, but if you go back, 5th at the PGA Championship, 7th at the RBC Canadian, again, talking about strength of field and just being able to find his way around. The stats actually don't look too bad. Solid around the greens, makes birdies, avoids doubles, stuff that you were looking into that I was looking into as well. And I think he's another guy that could show up. And then what about old Dylon? Weren't we supposed to talk about Dylon Fratelli here?
I guess so. I thought we were going to talk about fake Johnny Manziel again. Richard Mansell.
Gosh.
That guy killed us at the U.S. Open.
Be a perfect bounce back spot, actually. And it's so good. Well, the reason we liked him there was the off the tee game. But I don't know if you want to think about that or go back to him again. It just depends on what your lineups look like. There's lots of other options that you could switch to instead of him if you just take some of the guys we just mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know how many of these guys that I want, Ben, but because I do like the bottom of the 7,000s. Like, be it, I mean, I don't hate Ryan Fox. I feel like we turned into like people who hate Ryan Fox. I don't hate Ryan Fox. I think he could be a really nice play this week, especially at the price point. I wouldn't care if he was 13% and he finishes top 20 at $7,100. That is, I'll take that. I'll figure out the rest somewhere else. Like Moronk, Willett, even Woodland. We'll see how he ends up doing. Jordan Smith, who I mentioned. Like, I like all those guys. So instead of going down, I mean, Tom Kim, obviously. He's a very good price and he makes a lot of stuff work. But I don't think I need to get too crazy down here. Sam Horsfield would probably potentially be the other one that I would like. He's coming from the Live Tour. No one's paying attention to him, but I believe he's been 11th and 5th on the Live Tour so far. Obviously a British player. That tends to help sometimes. Ben?
I mean, yeah, I'm okay with Horsfield. I'm looking, there's a string of South Africans down here, and this is not helpful. I just have a gut feeling one of them is going to play good, but good luck sorting it out. I'm talking about a true 1%er. What about Higo?
I was going to say, I thought you were going to go to Thirsty Lawrence. That's my guy. Thurston
No,
Lawrence down at $6,000.
No, I saw that. I thought of obviously Trevor Lawrence, and I moved on with my life.
Hey, this guy just came. What was he? He was top 10 in Ireland. He was making a move at the Scottish. He made the cut. He fell back down.
Great stats today, though. Still, just didn't. It worked out to one over round for him. But I liked him in showdown. That's why I remember. But
Thirsty Lawrence, $6,000.
Don't have to sell Pat on Higo. That's his
Yeah,
guy.
that's
Though.
my guy.
You know, he's gonna go to him either way.
I don't even know who that is. If EVR wasn't completely in shambles, I would say to do it, but you've got him. Burmeister is there. I think Higo might be a Megamind genius play. I'm on board with Fratelli. Obviously, he's shown he can do it. There's a couple other dudes. Sean Norris is from South Africa. I'm not doing that, but if it's calm conditions, Higo's the type of guy who he fits what I'm trying to do. I don't think his made cut equity is high, obviously, but man, is it a tempting thing if you somehow get him through.
Burmeister, over the past 50 rounds in this field, top 20 in driving distance, top 70 in around the green, top 25 in beyond 25-foot putting. Like, those are the sort of weird intangibles that you would want for St. Andrews. Like, oh, he bombs it a bunch and he can make long putts.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I was just
What
doing
about
that too.
Bjork?
Like, who?
Yeah, say exactly. No one even knows this guy exists. He's playing good.
No, did you
in
say Bjork?
Scotland.
Bjork?
Yeah, Alexander Bjork, the Swede.
He came up on someone that was all over him in the chat this week, too. Bjelk!
Yeah, and he's
Yeah, that
crushing.
was
He's
me.
T10. He's T10 right now at the Scottish. But I was
And
looking at
Detry.
the distance stuff. that
Yeah,
you were just talking
Dietrich's
about.
interesting. Are neither of the Hoygaards in this field, or are they just priced higher than I thought?
No, they're here.
No, only Nikolai's in the field. Rasmus isn't. And Rasmus is the one doing well in Scotland, and Nikolai missed the cut.
Mm-hmm. I like the driving distance tiebreaker. That's what I was going to say. I was looking at it like some of the guys we already talked about, but I think so. We talked about Mitchell and Lucas Herbert. Min Woo fits into that one. He hops in. Higo tops in. Clark, Wyndham Clark. If they're scoring out there,
I feel like Wyndham Clark is a cut below those guys. I think
he is. I think he is. I'm saying, but he also comes down to 6,600. We could play Kim there, who we talked about.
We're playing Kim. We're playing Junhun Kim.
And he doesn't fit the driving distance narrative, but I'm saying it doesn't matter for me for that.
It's too good.
Chan Kim, Baroff liked him at the last major, told me he would do better than Mansell, and he did.
For Chan, 20th in driving distance.
Yeah, so he could be a guy that you could go to, and that's where I'm saying, like, if you're making all these and then John Daly fits the narrative.
Yeah, John Daly perfectly fits that narrative. The funny thing is, like, although Min Woo had won at the Renaissance Club before, he actually rates out better for this course for what his skill set is. And I was just looking at it and just going through his game log, Ben. But Lucas Herbert, 12th in driving distance, 15th in strokes gained short game. Like, he is Mr. Magic Beans. The dude cannot hit an approach shot to save his life. But now literally no one will be using him after this week.
That's what I'm saying. He missed the cut in brutal fashion. He is Mackenzie Hughes-esque. That's what he does. When he's had success, it's for no rhyme or reason. I get it. I really do. You have to incur. I liked him in Scotland, and look what happened. But I'll play him. Xander Lombard is here. Remember that guy?
Yeah, no, thank you. I've gotten duped into playing Xander Lombard way too many times.
He's a Ponzi scheme. That's
What
confirmed.
about Zanotti?
He's the
What about
NFT of major championships.
a different guy? Zanotti.
Oh, I used him this week. Fabrizio, the Paraguayan prince.
You got to go back to him. He's doing all right now. And by the way, Rasmus might get into this field. He's right in the mix. Remember, 3 seats to the non-qualified guys that are in this tournament that move on to next week. So Rasmus is moving up the board today. He's T7.
They need to kick David Duval out of this field so my guy Wacky Valimaki can get in.
What did I call him? I told you his name was Vala Kill Me Some. The Adam Sandler, somebody kill me, please. He just...
Mr.
Who
Paul
are
Shaughnessy.
some of these guys?
There's 4
down here?
Kims in this field and no Siwoo.
Yeah, I know.
What a dusty tournament.
Yeah, it's the worst tournament of the year.
No Luke List either.
No, yeah. This means I can win. I'm not going to lie to
have
you.
a chance,
No
man.
Siwoo, no Luke List. I got a chance
Things
this
are
week.
setting up well for you. Yes, definitely. And he goes in the field, so...
Well, Tom Kim is just the play. So, no List, no Siwoo. It's Tom Kim and Danny Willett. Go back to the guys that have won me money in the past.
You know who's not going to be the play come Wednesday for everybody watching right now? Tom Kim.
Oh, yeah,
because
100%.
you're already hyped as can be on him. We played him at 3% this week and are getting a great output from him. He's likely not the play next week. I'll just say that now. We'll see when we get there.
Or he's most definitely the play. Him and Kevin Na.
Oh God! Hey, we didn't talk about him
We
when we
didn't.
talked about live guys. Forgot about old Kevin.
He's
we
$7,000.
forgot about Answer too. How much was Answer this week?
What did Answer
yeah.
do at the live event?
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
Answer was 11th.
I thought he was in the mix a little bit.
Yeah, he was in the live event.
Kevin Na is 7,000 in this field there.
Na was also 11th at the live event. I thought he shot 80 day one. Interesting.
That's probably both true with that field.
It's true.
We just talked it up earlier, but now that probably is true. Miscut at the U.S. Open, 7th at the Schwab. Kevin Na recent. I was just trying to look at some of that.
And
stuff.
11th on the live tour.
And 11th on the Live Tour.
But he would kind of fit sort of he's someone who plays really well at Augusta in the exact opposite way that everyone else plays well at Augusta.
Which he could do here.
Which you could do here.
Yes.
He just used he's great from 125 and in. He's awesome around the greens. He putts like a champ. And he will get extra distance on the roll here. He won't he'll still be one of the shorter guys in the field, although David Duval is playing. So it'd be better than him, obviously. But other than that, he's not as short as it would seem at this event because this isn't a really long course.
Get some rollout maybe too,
Yeah.
right? We'll see what happens there. But a Kevin Na anchor wouldn't be the worst because you're talking about a guy that could come top 20. He could. You could see Kevin Na sitting T18 when this thing ends next week, and he's the last guy in at 7K.
Well, I think we've got to the end. We like everybody.
No.
It's fun times.
We actually skipped a lot of guys, I think.
I know.
We didn't spend as much time as you would expect on some. And
I will give the floor open right now to you guys. If there's someone that we absolutely did not talk about that you feel like has been a disservice that we didn't bring up, it could be Bryson if you wanted to.
I think we didn't spend enough time on Willie Z. Because I
Okay.
think he's a hotter topic than most will think. I know people have futures bets waiting on them. I know he's cursed.
He is
for the
Andrew
week.
Kirst coming into the week.
And he's right there with who we just talked about, Xander, Fitz, Cam Smith, Cantlay, Lowry, a lot of the guys we did talk about. What's the situation on Willie Z here? What do you think about him, and what do you think he'll come in at for ownership? Because I said earlier, I think he gets a pass like Justin Thomas, but how good is a pass when the pricing sets up for Spieth, Xander, Fitz, all right above him?
I think that he gets a pass, but I think that you're right. The 3 guys above him, Spieth, Xander, and Fitz, are just going to kill his ownership. And to kill, he's not 23%. He's 12%.
12%. That's where I was going to say. So then now, what do you think?
I like him. I listen. I think that he's fine. Do I like him better than Cam Smith, $100 less? It does feel like there's, as crazy as this is, and I know he just missed the cut at the Scottish. In these major championships, it just feels like he's just steady Eddie. You have him in your lineup, and he's going to do exactly what you want. Even if he starts off slow, he'll rally back. Cam Smith is all over the map sometimes.
It is true. And the way the course sets up. So Willie actually did an interview the other day, said he got a new driver.
Ooh.
And he's got another 6 yards. We've already been talking about Will Zalatoris, the stick, just out there punching it out, kind of like him and Fitzpatrick have both just added to their distance this season. It's definitely shown in these bigger events. The 2 that were in the set, well, almost in a playoff. I should have said Fitzpatrick won in regulation, of course, when Willie Z missed another putt. But he's been putting the ball out there. It's more open. He's one of the best ball strikers in the world. The greens are larger. He's going to put it with it inside. And then when you go look, driving distance, he's actually 8th in the last 50 rounds. It still all ties together. It just depends on what you think he's going to do on those greens.
And it's funny, his putting from beyond 25 feet, not bad. I mean, that was the biggest thing that I took away from his run at Torrey Pines earlier this year, and that's really translated, Ben, to all of the majors so far, is that it wasn't the 70-foot putt that was killing Zalatoris against Luke List coming down the stretch. It was the 4-foot putt.
Yeah, strokes gained putting is always weird like that because sometimes you look, it's like, oh man, this guy lost. It's like I saw him miss 6 5-footers, and it's true because he buries a couple 30-footers. That's not the problem. And a guy like Will Z, I think is shown to that. So I'm okay with that. I think that KH Lee in the right conditions could be the 6K guy that no one's really talking about. I really liked him leading into this swing. I know Links Golf doesn't scream KH Lee to me, but if he's 1% as I expect him to be, and I don't like maybe the draws of some of the 6K guys, I could see myself going to KH Lee and hope that it turns into just a straight iron competition.
And a lot of this will be determined by those wind splits, I think. Like when we speak live, 10 a.m., 10:15 a.m. Eastern time on Mayo Media Network, that we'll be able to parse through all that information. But I don't think that we necessarily need to talk ourselves off of guys that we like from today. I think that's one thing that I think we made a few too many adjustments the times that we've done this show, from this show to the Wednesday show and actually completing our lineups. Obviously, what we think on a Saturday evening isn't necessarily going to be the same what we think on a Wednesday. We've been able to absorb more information. We see where the leverage plays are. We see what the wind is. But just objectively speaking, sometimes I do think we talk ourselves off of the right plays.
Definitely can happen. We'll have it, like you said, for Wednesday. We'll have it covered. We'll be able to get a lot more into it. We'll know more about the weather, the ownership, all that. And last little tidbit from Ben, dropping the KH Lee at the end there.
TPC, they changed the name to TPC St. Andrews?
No,
That's
but
true.
at his most recent win, which is, again, at TPC Craig Ranch, do you know who else was in the top 5 with him? Spieth,
Thomas.
JT, and Xander, amongst others. Hideki was there, but just look at the guys we like for this week and just went in on a tangent of ownership at the top of this field. That KH Lee fits in the mix with him at that tournament, at least.
So what you're saying is that TPC Bunny Ranch is a corollary course for St. Andrews?
Yep.
All right.
Bazudenhout, Scheffler, 15th. Mito's up there. You got all the guys, man. Seamus Power. It's basically everyone we liked for the week for St. Andrews. We're all in the mix at TPC Craig Ranch. Obviously not being serious, but it is funny enough when you take a little, nugget that Ben drops us at the end and go dig in a little bit. It's just funny to see something like that it goes across.
If you just want to play like pure trends, oh no, he made the cut. This isn't going to work. But he's going to have a bad performance. Bez has been alternating like really good finishes with really bad finishes. He's T45 at the Scottish.
This is how we know the show's over.
Yeah. But I mean, Bez is another one. Yeah. Just like, oh yeah, you want to hit some wedges and like make putts from 90 feet? See Bez.
He played well today too. I think I was looking.
He was even for the day.
He ended up even. He started a little stronger, but okay.
All right, well, we'll dig into more of these losers as the week goes along. But Jordan Smith is someone that I think I'm going to get on. Tom Kim, Danny Willett. No Si Woo and List. I got to find like other places in the low 7,000s.
You have to make this week count for $1 million, $25.
It is, yeah. I just go all in on this week while like my regular guys aren't in the field. I can complete. Well, actually, Wyndham Clark's actually playing pretty well at the Scottish Open.
I was telling you, that's why I brought him up. I said, and he's got the distance and off the tee and all that. You never know.
But I'm going to try not to do that.
Okay.
Just remind me when we get on Wednesday and you've convinced me that he's a good play. Also convince me like Wyndham Clark's not good. Don't play that guy.
I'll switch it back for you for sure.
Appreciate that. Ben Rasa, tell everyone what you're up to this week and where they can find you.
Yeah, so over at Stochastic, obviously big week of Open Championship golf. We'll have shows, ownership, all the tools that everyone and that we reference on the show. So if you want to come on over for the week, just get on over stochastic.com/join. It's just going to be a really fun time. On a personal note, we'll be at the track at Saratoga sweating out the ponies while I sweat my golf simultaneously. So it'll just be a good week overall.
I will be up at like 3:30 a.m. my time on Thursday and Friday just to get into the swing of things. We'll have shows all week live, 10:15 a.m. Eastern time, Wednesday for that live chat with myself and Tambo. Once again, Apple and Spotify, rate and review. Even if you've done it before, the 5 stars to get into the draw. Hit the newsletter to find out more ways to get ballots into that draw. $500 to first, the polo for second, a fantasy national membership for third. Maybe we'll add some more into it. Tambo will be back on the network for Fantasy Golf Degenerates with Kenny Kim. Live on Thursday night with RunPureSports.com and the Showdown plays. Run Pure will be back without you on Friday evening. to do more showdown plays on Mayo Media Network. What do you guys have going on at runpuresports.com this week?
Yeah, everything. Same as always, runpuresports.com. You can check us out there. All sports, one price. That's the stuff we do. That's the free shows, like you mentioned, a couple of them even being on the Mayo Media Network for these big showdown slates.
Yeah, if you watched it on Thursday night, chances are you won like 20 grand or something.
Yeah, this
Everybody
past
watched
Thursday.
one.
Yeah, the first, I think it was first through third was like a listener that was on and hit us up on Twitter. It was Uncle T in second. You remember, yes, Uncle T's a real guy. Got second for 15,000. Big T got third for 5,000. So absolutely crushed it from that show. The guys did a great job. We're going to continue doing that. If you guys want to check it out, you can use promo code DGEN50, DEGEN50, and then of course add me on Twitter at Totag and Tambo, putting out the tidbits, everything like that for you guys. We'll see you back on Wednesday.
That will come out on Wednesday. I'll also include Tambo's tidbits in the newsletter on Mayo Media Network. Sub for free down in the description right now. You can follow me at the PME, noon Eastern on Monday. I'm giving away 50 free Millionaire Maker tickets for the Open Championship. So you might want to be following. And if he didn't say it, at JazzRazDFS for Ben Rasa. Hit him up. He's a good dude, as you just heard. Anyway, play in the Listeners League, smash the like, sub to the network, and that will do it for us and the first look for the Open Championship DraftKings show. Betting player by player in the live chat with Tambo, Jeff, Cust, Rick Gaiman, all coming at you the next 3 days. Stay tuned for that. Until then, I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience. Experience.